Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to welcome you all on behalf of Destination Home, PATH, our West Valley Community Services, and our Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. I was supposed to be joined by Jen Loving, who couldn't make it, but I am going to honor her spirit because her and I are both steadfast advocates for ending homelessness. My name is Jennifer Harkdietz, and I have the honor of being the CEO of PATH, and we're so excited to welcome you all today. So PATH, some of you may not know, but actually Jen was one of the reasons we were here. We joined the community in 2015, but just last year alone now, almost 10 years later, we served over 1,000 individuals, and we celebrated this beautiful building, which brought 93 additional units of affordable housing into our community. So we are very excited that we started, almost 10 years ago, and that we've grown to have the footprint that we do today. We're also all here tonight because we're dedicated to solutions to end homelessness in our community. And this crisis has been really hard to solve. So we need our elected leaders to really be steadfast and committed to end homelessness as we see it today. So as you'll hear tonight, the County Board of Supervisors really plays a critical role in this fight. And there's 2 open seats on the ballot in November. So I'm excited to welcome the candidates for the District 2 seat, Betty DeWong and Madison Nguyen, as well as later tonight, the District 5 seat, Margaret Abekoga and Sally Lieber. We will be starting with District 2, as you can see here this evening. So let's give a warm welcome to Madison and Betty. Okay, while we're all getting settled, I'm going to do a few housekeeping items for how the event will go tonight. So we're going to start this forum with 6 prepared questions. Each candidate will have about 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll alternate which candidate goes first. After those, we'll have time for your questions from the audience. Please, if you need a comment card, you can see David right there, who will hand you a comment card. You have until the 5th question, I'll give you a reminder, don't worry, to put your card in the box, and then towards the end, we will answer those questions, time permitting. And then if you have to use the restroom, as you can see, this is an industrial space. The restroom's actually in the residential area. So for my team, can you raise your hands who can take folks to the restroom? You can see the team back there. They would be glad to walk you in, and you'd have a chance to look at the beautiful affordable housing community. We'll also have 10 minutes in between, so we can all take a trip over there if we need to. And yeah, I think that covers everything. So we're excited to get started. We really thought, Jen and I, how important it was to partner with our lived experience team. So actually, they're going to be asking the questions tonight. I'm just here moderating. And so I want to thank again our friends at West Valley Community Services and the Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. They're going to introduce themselves and pose the questions to the candidate. So for the first question, we're going to start with Betty, and I'd like to introduce Gabriella Gabrian to kick us off.
Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Gabriella Gabrian. I am the board chair for the Lived Experience Advisory Board, LEABsv. And my question is, since the recent Supreme Court ruling, Governor Newsom and the other elected officials across the state and region have called for taking a more enforcement-heavy approach to addressing homelessness. This could mean going against best practices and towards utilization of increased sweeps, broad anti-campaigning ordinances, mandates that people utilize shelters, and even penalties for unhoused people. What would be your approach to addressing homelessness and our affordable housing crisis?
Thank you, Gabriella, for that question and for helping to organize this evening's event. Good evening, everybody. My name is Betty Young, candidate for Santa Clara County Supervisor, District 2. Right here. I was born and raised in Santa Clara County in San Jose at Valley Medical Center. My mom and dad came to San Jose in 1979 as clients of the county's refugee resettlement program. Through that program, they were provided health care, they were provided housing, we had social services, welfare, Section 8, all the supports, and so many which don't no longer exist right now for the families who are living in vulnerable states. So when you ask about my approach to homelessness and to providing services and care, it's the same approach that I've taken with everything that I've done in life, coming from that background, being a county client for most of my childhood, watching my whole community grow from being county clients, and working at the county for the last 11 years to strengthen the very same system that my family and I and my neighbors relied on for so long. So what does that look like? That looks like empathetic design, centering lived experiences, committing to a housing first model. And those are the values that I carried in 2016 when I led the Measure A Affordable Housing Bond Measure that helped build the building that we're in right now. And every single time a Measure A unit is constructed, every time there's a groundbreaking or ribbon cutting, I take my daughter because I was pregnant with her in 2016 during the Measure A campaign. We need to build more. We need to provide people with housing first. We need to provide them with the services and the care and the resources they need to be able to first survive before we expect them to thrive. So I don't agree with an approach of penalizing people for being poor, for being the victim of their circumstances, without giving them some type of resources for them to be able to stand up first. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Madison Nguyen. So glad to be here having this conversation, really important conversation with all of you. I appreciate Path and Destination Home putting together this forum to address probably one of the most important issues in this race for both Betty and myself. But let me just get straight to the point. The question is, what are some of the things that I can do to address homelessness and the housing crisis that we have? Obviously, first of all, I just wanted to congratulate all the nonprofit organizations for doing your part to make sure that the unhoused residents have a safe place to sleep at night. I think it's really unfortunate that in a county like ours, which is really home to many, many wealthy corporate and companies, we still have over 7,000 people sleeping on our streets every single night. That is not okay, and that should not happen. And it's really the county's and the city's job to work together to make sure that we help our unhoused residents. And I think that is really unfortunate, some of the comments that was provided by our governor, really ridiculing some of the things that the county and the city has done. I don't believe in those rhetoric. I think it's really unfortunate that it's happening. But one of the things that we need to do is that the county needs to do more to step up and provide more housing, work with the city of San Jose, because we can't continue to blame one entity over another. The city and the county needs to work together. The city needs to continue to build interim housing, supportive permanent housing with a long vision of building affordable housing for residents. And the county needs to step up its game to provide supportive services both on-site, because that's really, really important. In order for us to truly end the cycle of homelessness, the county and the city must work together. And that is my mission, if I'm elected, is to make sure that both the city and the county work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your responses. I now would like to turn it over to Brenda Bell Brown to ask our next question of the candidates, which we'll have Madison start with first.
Thank you. I am Brenda Bell Brown, and I am a member of the West Valley Community Services Lived Experience Action Committee. Studies have proven that the most effective strategy for ending homelessness is to pair affordable housing development and supportive services. However, we're facing limited funding now that the Measure A housing bond has been spent and the proposed regional housing measure has been pulled from the November ballot. What steps would you take to make sure we are continuing to find and fund affordable housing and expand access to key services such as behavioral health care and case management?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Like I stated earlier, I think that in order for us to truly end the cycle of homelessness, we need to have both housing and supportive services. And I think it's really unfortunate that the regional housing bond has been pulled and it's not going to be on the November ballot. Hopefully in the near future that we have the opportunity to bring this back because we really need that type of funding to make sure that we continue to build more affordable housing for our unhoused residents as well as for seniors and low-income families in our county. But, three things that I wanted to do. I want to be very clear on what we can do because talk is cheap. When we have these crises on our street, we need to make sure that we elect a candidate that actually has the experience, can actually do this kind of work on day one without having to go through the learning curve. And so the first thing that we need to do is that we need to leverage public funding. How do we do this? We need to work with both our state and the federal delegation to make sure that we bring back funding from both the state and the federal government to help our county. Two, we need to establish a public and private partnership. We need to work with private developers to incentivize them to build more affordable housing here in our county. And then three, obviously in terms of addressing behavioral health care and case management, we need to look at how we can expand our Medicaid to cover more behavioral health care and case management, especially for those low-income residents and those experiencing homelessness. These are very pragmatic approaches that we need to take, but at the same time, I think it's really important to also use the right metrics and the right measures so that we are accountable for the dollars that we actually receive from property owners on a yearly basis. If we don't hold ourselves accountable, if we don't hold our nonprofit organizations accountable, if we don't hold government employees accountable, and we keep on spending the same money and expect different results, it's not going to work. So it's time to reset that button. It's time to actually put these metrics in place so that we can deliver results for our resident.
Oh, thank you. The regional housing bond measure was an incredible disappointment. So we need to move forward with maintaining existing funding and securing new funding, both public, private, at the state, federal level. All levels and local levels. And when we show our future funders and current funders what we've been able to do with Measure A, we're able to reinforce that case. The best practice is that when paired with housing, services work better. When services are paired with housing, it works better. And we see that, we talk about accountability a lot. I'm very proud that 2016 Measure A is audited not on an annual basis, not on a biannual basis, on a quarterly basis with our county assessor leading the Measure A Oversight Committee. So we have to adequately fund housing management and support services to ensure the safety of all residents and success of people transitioning from being unhoused. Two new ideas are to leverage CalAIM and the community support benefits, and to consider expanding in-home supportive services to clients in permanent supportive housing so people have more of the one-on-one support they need, especially when they first transition to permanent supportive housing. And as the candidate endorsed by the in-home supportive service workers, they are ready. They are ready to be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you both for that answer. Next, I would like to introduce Rachel Hart. She'll introduce the next question, which will go to Betty first to respond.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Hart, and I am the treasurer for the Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. We know that Santa Clara County residents are being stretched thin financially, which is a key reason more people are being pushed into homelessness than ever before. In fact, in 2023, for every one person who regained stable housing, 1.7 people were pushed into homelessness for the first time. What economic policies would you propose to help make our community more affordable and help more people stand in their homes?
Thank you, Rachel. So everything all at once to reverse the numbers, to prevent homelessness and house more people than the number of people who would become unhoused. We have to double down on prevention. So, and the work that I've done at the county for the last 11 years of the partnerships that we've had with our nonprofit housing partners and community partners, we know that prevention is going to be infinitely easier, more cost-effective, and more fruitful than allowing someone to deteriorate or to live on the streets, to fight that challenge to live every day. So we got to make sure that we are able to help those living on the verge right now. That's part of the county's overall mission. So, since 2016 is when we got into the business, the county, the community of long-term supportive housing and affordable housing. We're learning as we go along. We're taking the lessons learned. I don't believe that we have to scrap everything, as some would say. It's building on the lessons learned. How do we be better and good partners and good neighbors to our residents next to Measure A units, Measure A developments? How do we work with our nonprofit partners and our school districts to identify those already living on the verge of homelessness or with housing insecurity? Let's catch them before this happens. So that's where we have to invest. That would be like my approach to moving forward and expanding our continuum of care to include both prevention and intervention. And at the same, with both of those actions happening at opposite ends, we squeeze this problem out of here.
So according to an article from San Jose Spotlight, I think that was appeared last week or the week before, it's shown that there has been a 24% increase in homelessness, particularly with family with children. And this has really continued to increase. If you're looking at that number compared to 2021 to 2022, there was only a 9% increase. So you can see that the trend is actually increasing. And that is really, really sad. We need to step up. We need to do something, and we need to do something now in order to prevent more people from becoming homeless. So if you're looking at economic policies, one of the things that's really hard to hear was that Vice President Kamala Harris talked about incentivizing providing $25,000 for first-time home buyers. That is something that our county should embrace and should support, and sending our federal delegation to make sure that we capture some of that money. And I hope that our future President Harris, after she's elected, that she will come up with more programs to help our families purchase their first home and also to stay in their home. But I think another thing that we need to do from a county perspective is that we need to partner with the companies in our county, with the business community, to provide more training, to provide more opportunity for people to have either part-time jobs, internship programs, apprenticeship programs, or be relatively available to enter the workforce. If we're living in a place like Santa Clara County, Silicon Valley, and we don't utilize the partnership that we have with these corporations, I think it's just a lost cause. And it's something that we need to step up. I have experience as a former San Jose Council member, as well as Vice Mayor, to work with these companies. I would use that leverage and that relationship to continue to do that. And then finally, we also need to work with our youth. We need to have partnerships with our school districts, with our business community, to provide better vocational, technical, and trade programs so that our students, after they graduate from high school, that they are ready to enter the workforce if college is not in their immediate path.
Thank you both again. I'm going to turn it back over to Brenda, and the next question, Madison, will start.
Our community has experimented with many different shelter models, from converted motels and tiny homes to safe parking and safe sleeping sites. And each of these different models have pros and cons. What is your vision for temporary shelter in our community? For example, are there certain models you do and don't support? Are there certain quality standards you think all shelter options should have?
I think that we need to look at all the models, and I think that we need to make sure that we execute each model in the way that it should be executed. The homelessness crisis, it's here, it's now, it's affecting everyone, and it's affecting residents, it's affecting businesses, it's affecting just our environment, our safety, is affecting everything. And not to put any blame on the homeless, the unhoused populations, we need to help them. There is nothing incompassionate about letting someone sleep on the streets, letting someone not being taken care of. We need to do that. So if that means that we need to build more interim housing, we need to provide temporary shelter, or build more supportive permanent supportive housing, and with the long visions of building more affordable housing, those are all the things that we need to do. We need to also look at safe sleeping sites. We need to look at RV parking sites so that we can actually house our unhoused residents. We have children, we have seniors, we have women, we have all these people who are homeless. Let's help them, and let's help them now. Let's utilize every single tool that we have at our discretion to make sure that happen. And in terms of providing those kind of sites, I think it's really, really critical for us to be able to provide hygiene, laundry, food preparation, security, safety has to be there. No matter which option we choose, we need to make sure that people are safe, that they have, cleanliness, they have clean clothes, they can do laundry, they can do all that stuff. Let's not treat them like they're not a part of our community. They are a part of the community. We need to treat them like that.
I think every shelter option must meet minimal health and safety standards such as toilets, water to wash, and stay clean, some level of monitoring our security, and staffing to provide services and referrals. The county has led in this regard with our Valley Healthcare Homeless Project and the Backpack Medicine team. I do favor safe parking sites because for many people, that vehicle is the last home that they have, and the only asset that may provide them with the means to get to work or to work safely and to store their most precious belongings, as long as that vehicle is still safe and operational. The thinking about shelter encampments has evolved over the last 5 years in our area, and while I favor actual shelters and other programs, any programs like this have to be put up and run safely for the clients and surrounding community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. This now is your audience reminder that we're coming up on our 5th question. So if you do want to put a question into the box, please raise your hand and Zach and David will help you out. Okay, so next I'm going to turn it back to Gabriella, and then Betty, you'll start first.
Thank you. My question is, recent data from the HUD shows that there are over 60,000 unhoused women in California, a number which has disturbingly doubled since 2015. There is a significant number of these women who are survivors of domestic abuse, mothers, or current pregnant. What will you do to address this important and vulnerable population?
Thank you. I want to acknowledge first that in the last 10 years, the county has increased its funding to support survivors and victims of domestic violence by 400%. It went from $2 to $10 million. That's because we had the right supervisor in place, the right board of supervisors to approve that made significant shift in how we support victims and survivors of domestic violence and intimate partner violence. The fact that there are so many women and families, including those with young children, on a waiting list right now for shelter or housing is unconscionable. And we all have an obligation and responsibility to do more. Supervisor Ellenberg has championed the focus on families, and we have begun to make some progress. But I see that we need to work with our existing affordable housing partner and providers like Community Solutions to build a continuum of housing for women and those who have experienced violence against them and their family members, and re-envision these services to extend beyond a 3-day or 3-week temporary stay. When leaving a violent and abusive environment, it's going to take much longer than that to recenter and stabilize yourself. This is the work that I've done for the last 11 years. I oversaw the Division of Equity and Social Justice during this time of significant increase in funding and really centering lived experiences to provide care around the whole family. That division includes the Office of Women's Policy and also the Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention, where we house the $10 million contracts to provide emergency critical services right now, and they need more work. 3 days at a stay, 3 weeks at a stay is not enough.
It's really heartbreaking to see the number of unhoused women continue to increase every year. Obviously, we have seen an increase overall in terms of homelessness among women, men, families. But I think that for women, they're at a risk of even worse scenarios that could happen to them, like sexual assault, physical attacks, and also theft of their possession. And so I think for me, if I'm elected, I want to make sure that I do everything I can to work with our nonprofit organizations to actually specifically cater to the services of helping these women, help them transition from the streets back into a safe environment. It is so crucial that we pay more attention to unhoused women in our community. On a personal level, I'm a mother to a 12-year-old daughter, and so women issues around making sure that we protect the safety of our female population, especially the homeless female population in our county, is really, really crucial. And if I'm elected, you can count on me to be an ally and a champion of women issues.
Thank you both so much. Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel, and Madison, you'll go first.
All across our community, we're seeing the importance of centering individuals' lived experience in everything we do, whether it be experience related to discrimination, violence, economic insecurity, or any other host of issues to learn from, a host of issues affecting our residents. How would you plan to learn from and collaborate with people with lived experience of homelessness in order to make meaningful change?
I think we can all agree that every one of us has our unique story, and not every story is the same. So to truly understand someone's story, you have to approach it with, first, respect, 2, active listening, and 3, with understanding. If you don't approach someone's story with those framework work in mind, it's really easy, it's much easier to bypass what they're saying. And so I think that for me, especially having spent the last year and a half canvassing, knocking on thousands of doors, meeting people from all walks of life, people sharing with you their personal stories, things that they wish that they can see that work better in our community. If you don't listen actively and actually take that into consideration, how are you going to make good public policy that's going to have positive impact when you become an elected official? So I think those 3 criteria is really, really important. I think another issue that's really important to me is that when you encounter someone with lived experience, especially a homeless resident, I think it's really important to actually bring them to the table and see if they can help you craft the kind of policy that's going to have direct impact. Because in order to make good, effective public policies, you have to identify the facts on the ground. That's what's really matter. That's what's really important. It's not something that you read from a textbook, although that's also important, but I think you need to really understand what are the facts on the ground. Take that in, put that together with other policies, then you can develop something that is going to have tremendous positive impact. And I plan to do that if you allow me the opportunity to become your next supervisor.
This is such a great question to close out the forum here. As someone who was raised on county services, as someone who was born into county services, living on county services most of the part of my childhood, and then spending the last 11 years working at the county organization, I know firsthand how important it is to get input from those who will be benefiting, utilizing the services, living these services, before we start building. Before we put shovels in the ground and start constructing, we need to have that engaged process now. And I learned that at the county, that's called empathetic design. And so being someone who has the county experience as an employee, as someone who's built programs, launched services, and as someone who's navigated these resources as a kid, because my parents don't speak English. I translated at social services, I translated to social workers. I was the one that had to talk to the landlords about rent and talk to housing. It's the unintended consequences of well-intentioned programs can make or break a family. So that's why empathetic design is so important to me. And because I have that experience both as a user, a consumer, and also as a client, county project manager. I've had so many titles, I'm sorry, in the last 11 years. But project manager, program manager, division supervisor, lead public information officer, everything, right? It's just all that combined is the reason why I'm running for this seat. We've never had a county supervisor candidate that has this level of experience from both sides of that aisle, so to speak. So the Vietnamese American Service Center, that was an 8-year community engagement process before shovels went into the ground. The Foster Youth Hub and Resource Center. On my first month of work in 2013, I went to the Hub Foster Youth Resource Center and I listened to our foster youth tell me they want a new hub, they want it built by them, with them, and it has to have all the things that they need to be able to transition and to be successful as a transition age youth. They didn't ask for housing at the hub, but We broke ground last year, and when the Hub Foster Youth Resource Center is finished, it'll have 81 units of housing on top of it for transition age youth. That was done through empathetic design. The kids didn't ask for it 13 years ago, but they asked for it 2 years ago, and we moved our butts to make it happen. And that's what I believe in. It's not just in the talk, it's in the experiences and the things that I've built, actual things I can point to. The Community Health and Business Engagement Team, the Healthy Nail Salon Recognition Program to protect women's health. All done through engagement, through the advice, through the demands of those who need these services the most. And that's the only way I build things.
Okay. Yes, so we will definitely have time to applaud our candidates. I want to applaud my partners and our amazing advocates for this compelling conversation before we go to your audience questions. So let's give them a huge round of applause too. Okay, so this is an active audience, so we have quite a few questions. We'll try to get through what we can. I'm going to start with the question, and we'll have Betty answer first. So community opposition can be a major barrier to implementing solutions to homelessness and building affordable housing. If elected, how will you help overcome this challenge?
Okay, so I'm a neighbor here from down the street. And I work over there, down that way, a couple blocks at the county building. I'm gonna leave now. And the thing is that, the reason why I say is that we all come home to each other. We have to remember that. At the end of the day, whether we differ on how things should be implemented, how things should be approached, we all come home to each other. And I think we lead with that first. That's how I approach doors when I go precinct walking. That's how I approach all of my projects at the county for the last 11 years. Who are my neighbors? Who are my allies? Who are my friends? Who are the people who care deeply about this? It has to start with that relationship and basis of trust first. And you know, something that I learned in law school, in constitutional law, that has really helped define how I approach problem solving is that discourse is okay. Discourse and debate is okay. Not only is it okay, it's necessary to allow the best ideas to rise to the top. I think that was a Justice Scalia opinion. I can't remember, but that was in week 1 of con law. And that's why I remembered that I'm not afraid of hard conversations. And sometimes when we're knocking on doors, when I'm having conversations with community members before a major issue at the Board of Supervisors meeting, and they have a lot to let go of, I remember that I may be the first person that's actually listening. So this is their space to vent, let me know, let me have it, right? And then let's work together and make it better.
As a former elected official, obviously, I have had many years experiencing working with people from both across the aisle and people who come from different ideology and different perspective. I think the most important thing is, first of all, you have to have respect, and then you have to listen. And then from that, respect, listen, and you learn. That's the way that I've always approached any particular issues, especially controversial issue. The county has a lot of issues that are coming our way, from homelessness to a lack of affordable housing to the increase in crime. These are challenging issues, and these are daily issues that people, average citizens, deal with on a daily basis. So how do you overcome disagreement? How do you overcome controversy? You listen to each other, you respect each other, and hopefully at the end of the day, you all agree that we need to put the community's needs first. Because if you constantly think that way, I think that you can come to a collective agreement that whatever we do, whatever disagreement we have, or agreement that we have, if we put the community's needs first, we will achieve the results that we want. I don't pretend to know everything. I'm a life learner. I would love to be able to learn from people who actually have experiences, have gone through, the trenches. That's what being an effective public servant is about to me. And you will see that that is the that's the type of supervisor that I'm going to be, is to respect your ideology, to respect your perspective, to respect the disagreement, learn from it, and then actually come up with solutions that's going to benefit all of us.
Okay, thank you both. For the next question, Madison, we'll start with you. What role can the county play in getting cities more actively engaged in supporting the plan to end homelessness, especially cities who are dragging their feet?
Again, I believe that the city and the county need to reset the button. We need to work together. We need to put the blame game aside and focus on what we can do to make sure that we are going to reduce homelessness in the next 3 years, 5 years, if not, hopefully, the next 1 or 2 years. But we all know the roles of the city versus the county. The city is really in charge of building interim housing, tiny homes, safe shelters, but it's really the county's job to actually provide the services and the supportive services. Whether we do it on site if we have funding, or if we don't have enough funding, then we bring in the mobile clinics, right? But both agencies needs to step up and do its part. It can't be cities doing 80% and counties doing 20%, and it can't be county doing 20% and cities doing 80%. And that's what is really exciting for me to get elected, because I have worked at the city for nearly 10 years. I know the roles of the city, the responsibility of the city when it comes to solving homelessness, and now having the opportunity to be a county supervisor and bring that experience from the city to the county to make sure that we work together with our mayor, Matt Mahan, as well as the members of the city council and the rest of the city of San Jose, to make sure that we work with the 5 members of the board of supervisor, because it's time for us to deliver results for our community.
Okay, Betty, yeah.
District 2 is the best district in the county. And sometimes all the time I argue the best district in the world. We are home to downtown, Japantown, Mayfair, Little Italy, Little Portugal, Little Saigon, Alum Rock, Plata Arroyo, East Side, all of that. That's what makes San Jose, what makes Santa Clara, that's what makes San Jose the center county seat of Santa Clara County. Now, I say that because at the same time, District 2 is the district of greatest need. We have over half of the county's unhoused population. We have the majority of county clients relying on our systems and our safety net for food, for housing, for medical services, for behavioral health services, all of that. That's all to say, we fix things here in District 2, we fix it for the whole county. My potential future colleagues on the County Board of Supervisors understand that and they agree with that. That's why so many things, so many new launches, so many new initiatives, it starts here in District 2 first, with the City of San Jose being our first partner. The City of San Jose is half of our county district. So we launch things here. Be bold, be brave, be okay with making mistakes, because that's what comes to the territory when you're the first. When you're the first to launch something, when you're the first to innovate, when you're the first to push the boundaries, you make the mistakes for everybody else. And then you say, here, you're welcome. Here's the plan. We did it. The world did not come crashing down. It's okay. And then we move forward. So that's basically my biggest theory and my jam on how I approach things. I believe in being audacious as a policy maker and being excited by this work, because we know we have so much potential and we've made so many gains. So let's build on top of that and build more. And we have a great city council and a great mayor that's ready to work with us on that. So let's move forward and be a great example for the rest of the county and for the other 14 cities.
Thank you so much, both of you. Okay, for the next question, Betty, you'll start first. Supposedly there's oversight for measures like A. This is a two-parter. If so, why is homelessness continuing to increase? There does seem to be real accountability for our tax dollars. Why then should I have to keep being asked to approve measures for more money?
Oh, I'm so sorry to the person who asked that question. So let me just say this first. We don't do a good job of communicating at the county. I realized that when I was translating for my parents as a kid. I realized that when I came to the county in 2013, in the first month of work, I was asked to translate for a family at the window. I realized that when I was the lead public information officer for the COVID-19 Emergency Operations Center, and we didn't have a communications or language access plan, right? We have to be able to communicate to our residents first where your dollars are going. That's basic and done. So I would love to bring my communication skills to that, to change that. Now Measure A does, yes, I talked about Measure A oversight earlier, but now we're talking about, like, we keep on seeing this problem exacerbate, explode, right? We all know that. No one in here is saying that homelessness and housing insecurity is getting better. For every one person, we house 1.7 persons. Actually, the report I got was for 2 persons, 1 to 2. That's why, going back, prevention. We have not built out a prevention system to stop the flow. The 1-to-2 ratio or the 1-to-1.7 ratio, that's math that we can never get out from under, no matter how good our services are. That we keep on intervening, we keep on housing folks, but the ecosystem, the environment, the landscape of the world we live in today keeps on pushing more people into housing insecurity and homelessness. So let's build out that prevention system to help squeeze out this problem. Right now, when families call the Here For You hotline, when they contact our office asking, hey, is there a place for me and my family to go tonight? Or when they call me and they say, look, I've done what I'm supposed to do. I call every single day to see where I am on the waiting list, right? That should not be the case. Our staff on the phones answering the calls, it breaks their heart, it breaks our heart, it breaks all of our hearts here. We have to build out a prevention system to help people who are on the edge, on the verge of homelessness. Now, once we have interventions and prevention systems in place, good jobs, good economy, strong small business developments, right? With all, in the next 10 to 20 years, we're gonna have massive infrastructural investments made. And you can see the construction happening now if you live on East Side. Capra Expressway, downtown's about to be ripped up next, down Santa Clara to drill a giant BART way underneath Santa Clara Street. As we are building out these massive transportation infrastructures, there's an opportunity to build high density housing along these sites, create walkable communities where businesses can thrive, support our economic development, give people good jobs. Thank you.
I think what I'm about to say is not going to be very popular, but it is a fact. And the fact is because there is a lack of accountability in the system that the county currently has right now in order for us to reduce or end homelessness. And let me explain this. Yes, we are a very generous community. Every 2 years or 4 years, we have a bond measure on the ballot. Usually it gets support. Unfortunately, with the regional housing bond, poll shows that there wasn't support for it. And I think the reason why is because the same thing that, which alluded to the question, is that we have been paying for so many different kind of bonds and we're not seeing the results. Why is that? Because we don't have the right metrics and we don't have the right measures in place. I'm not here to knock anyone. I think the nonprofit organizations are doing a fine job of trying to deliver services and trying to help reduce homelessness in a community. But I also think that there are also nonprofit organizations that are not doing their part, so to speak, to make sure that they're utilizing the funds that's being provided by the county in the way that they should. And if that's the case, as a member of the Board of Supervisors, I would like to help them. I would like to fill in the gap, look at ways where they're not fulfilling the contract and help them. And if they're not doing a good job, then we need to make sure that we fund them for the area's expertise and let someone else take over and do that. These are the kind of things that needs to happen. It's a very simple formula. If you don't do good work, we will look at somebody else to make sure that they do that, because that's the only way to solve an issue. You can't keep throwing money at the same issue and expect different results. It's not going to work. It has never worked and will never work. So I hope that after I'm elected that we have the right measures in place, we have the right metrics in place, so people know exactly how the dollars are being spent, because it's time for change.
Okay, thank you both. This is going to be our final audience question. Madison, you'll start here. Please provide specific examples of how you will work with the city on ending veteran homelessness.
I love the veterans. I go to the Veterans Housing Center facility on 10th Kurt Avenue on the east side, almost on a bi-weekly basis. I serve lunch there, and I do that because I am immensely grateful for their service, for the sacrifices that they make so that we can have the freedoms that we have today. And so, for me, whatever I can do as a member of the Board of Supervisors working with the City of San Jose to make sure that we provide services, to make sure that we provide adequate housing, to make sure that we do everything we can to show our deep respect and our deep appreciations for these veterans, that's what I would do. I would look at surplus properties that the county currently owns, which they do, and see if we can actually convert those into veteran housing to house more veterans, to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that they have a place to live. And there are so many opportunities ahead of us. But again, when we do these kind of things, we need to set our standards. We need to make sure that we have metrics in place, measures in place. We need to hold ourselves accountable. If we're going to use a surplus piece of land or a surplus property, we need to work with the state, with the city, to make sure that we develop a place that's up to par and up to standard so that we can provide a safe place for our veterans. And that's what I would do.
Veterans homelessness is veterans behavioral health services. It's veterans housing insecurity. It's veterans food insecurity. It's veterans health insecurities. It's veterans not being taken care of holistically. It's all of that. To resolve homelessness amongst our veterans, it means to be able to coordinate all care around them and place them first. The county's Office of Veteran Affairs and the city's offices and resources and staff, we're talking about how do we put them together for a very, very long time, right? And I grew up watching this. The county and the city stayed in their lanes. They stayed in separate lanes and we just kind of went along. That happened when I witnessed that as a kid, I witnessed that as a client, I witnessed that in the last 11 years. But the demands and the realities of today's landscapes, the needs that we have to be able to meet, requires us to be in each other's lanes, to be in the same space, to be able to have the Office of Veterans Affairs be rooted also in the Office of Supportive Housing, to be able to holistically approach the care that our veterans need. I think that we keep on siloing ourselves. That includes city and county as jurisdictional partners, but also as services. And really what we need to do for our veterans and for any vulnerable populations is to sit around the table and listen through a theory, approach, and framework of empathetic design, have them tell us, how do we build this new system, this new framework out to best serve your needs? Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. I want to thank you for taking time out of what I know is a very busy schedule for you both to be here with us tonight. And I'd like to offer you each 2 minutes of a closing statement. I'll start with Betty, it's your turn, and then we'll go to Madison.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I see neighbors, I see community leaders, I see advocates here tonight. And, talk about accountability. This is accountability, right? In about 48 days, someone's going to be a new supervisor, and you're here on the ground level to make sure that we stay true to our words and our promises and our vision. I'm a first-time candidate with 11 years of experience. During this time, during this whole evening here, I've listed off a lot of projects that I've worked on. That's to say, I know how to build things. I've done that work. I've worked at almost every level of the county operation in direct services, senior nutrition programs, social services, project management, budget, policy, construction, building the newest health center that the county now has, that has the first non-appointment behavioral health clinic, by the way. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You just walk through the doors, a peer support navigator will see you and meet you and be able to get you to a clinician. That's all to say is that there has never been a more qualified, uniquely qualified candidate for county supervisor. And on top of that, my relationship with the county, you've heard it here tonight, I've alluded to it, I'll say it just point blank. My relationship at the county starts from birth. So when I'm at the county, every person that comes through our window, comes through our doors, comes to our office that calls me, I see my mom, I see my dad, I see my family. Can I build services that a monolingual elder dad can access? Meanwhile, he's also carrying the traumas of war on his back. How can we build? That's how I approach it. And I always ask that question, why not? Why can't we build it around and center it around the client in that way? Everything I've done at the county has been centered around our clients, our partners, our community. I will continue to do that. I've done so much as a county employee. I've accomplished more as a county employee than some of our local electeds. And I could do so much more as a county supervisor. This is truly a labor of love. Thank you for the opportunity to serve you for the last 11 years. I look forward to the privilege and honor of serving you for the next 12. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight and indulging us. Of course, thank to Path and Destination Home for hosting this forum. It's really important. Like many of you, my family is vested in this community. I'm sure that we all want to grow up in a community or, that we help build a home for a family. I'm not alone to say that I want a community that is safe, secure, vibrant, and clean for my daughter. a community where she can actually walk to a nearby park and not be afraid, a community where she can, take a hiking trail and actually appreciate the environment. We live in Santa Clara County. This is home to one of the most wealthiest regions in the nation. And the county has an annual budget of $12.5 billion. With that kind of money, why is it that we continue to see more homeless people on the streets? Why are we seeing more crime happening in our community? Why are we not building enough affordable housing to house low-income families and seniors? Because we don't have accountability in the services that we provide. We don't have accountability in the programs that we provide. We don't have accountability in the revenues that we receive from funding in order to provide those services. So I think that it's time for us to change the status quo. It's time for us to get a fresh perspective, to actually elect someone who's willing to roll up her sleeves and deliver services for our community. And I think that it's time for us to make that change, be bold, be practical, and say, this is the kind of community that I want, and I want a supervisor who's going to work hard, put the talk aside, do the walk, and start delivering services on day one. Thank you very much.
Let's continue that round of applause for both District 2 candidates. Thank you again for being here with us tonight. Really appreciate your time. And for our audience, we're going to take about a 10-minute break while we bring up our District 5 candidates. So please feel free to grab some food, or if you have to run to the restroom, we'll take you over. And for the second half of tonight's forum, we're very excited to hear from our candidates for the open District 5 seat on our Board of Supervisors. After our conversation with District 2, I hope you all can really see the critical role that the county board plays in the efforts to end homelessness. So we're excited to hear about the plans of the candidates for the District 5 seat. We have Margaret Abekoga and Sally Lieber. Please, let's give them a huge round of applause. Okay, as before, or if you're joining us new, we're going to start the forum with 6 prepared questions. Each candidate will have about 2 minutes to respond, and then we'll alternate candidates' answers. After we get through those questions, we'll use any remaining time for your questions, so the questions from the audience. And just a few housekeeping. For those that are just joining us, the bathroom is actually in our residential component. So team, will you raise your hands if anyone has to go to the bathroom? You can see our team towards the back. And they would be glad to help you over there. And you can see the beautiful affordable housing community. We also have Spanish interpretation in the back. So waving the hands in the back if anyone needs that. And lastly, if you have any questions that you want to ask the candidates, please fill out a comment card and hand it to one of our team members. So you'll be able to submit your questions until the 5th question of our prepared questions, and I'll give you a little warning, and then we'll do our best to accommodate as many as we have. Okay, let's get started. So we thought it was important to really partner with those with lived expertise, which is why our friends at West Valley Community Services and the Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley will be introducing themselves and posing questions to the candidates. So for the first question, we're going to start with Margaret, and I'd like to introduce Gabriela Gabrion to kick us off.
Yes, thank you. My name is Gabriela Gabrian. I am the board chair for Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley, LEABsv. Since the recent Supreme Court ruling, Governor Newsom and other elected officials across the states and region have called for taking a more enforcement-heavy approach to addressing homelessness. This could mean going against best practices towards the utilization of increased sweeps, broad anti-campaigning ordinances, mandate that people utilize shelters, and even penalties for unhoused people. What would be your approach to addressing homelessness and our affordable housing crisis?
Thank you. Hello. Okay. Great. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Margaret Abe-Kogan, and I really appreciate being here. We actually had a forum yesterday with West Valley Community Services co-sponsoring, so thank you again, and thank you to all of the sponsors for having us. I am a city council member in the city of Mountain View, serving my 16th year. I've been mayor twice during the Great Recession and then during COVID. So have faced many challenges, and yet I'm very proud of what we've been able to do in Mountain View on many different fronts. We're seen as a leader, and especially in housing development, allowing for more housing. And I believe in offering different types of options. During the last several years, as we've seen an increase in homelessness, we as a city have put in resources of our own, the city resources, to address the issue, provide more services, and I personally have gone out to look at the programs and the residents that we serve, and what I've seen is that there's a lot of diversity in our community, and I think it's really important that we offer different options. So we have safe parking lots for vehicle dwellers. We have transitional housing programs. We have 9 right now affordable housing 100% projects like this one. I actually had a chance to tour your other PATH project on 2nd Street, which helped inform me as we were looking to find a developer for one of our projects. And then we also allow for market rate housing development. So it's really doing all of the above. And then I see the importance of having the wraparound services. So we provide case managers at these, in the programs that we provide. And so that it would be my approach, is everything above, all of the above. Thank you.
Yeah, Sally, go
Thank you. I'm Sally Lieber. I've been in government for a very long time. I've fulfilled a lot of roles, being a council member, also in Mountain View, being mayor of Mountain View, serving on a county commission on social services, serving in the state assembly, and doing a lot of work on human services and social services and civil rights. And I now serve on the State Board of Equalization. So I've seen all of the policy-making process, and I've been around the county and around social services and human services for a very long time. Now, the question was about the sweeps. I absolutely, positively oppose the sweeps as a technique to criminalize people and their survival. I think the sweeps have been a complete waste of money. Many times in the city of San Jose, the city is sweeping materials that clearly say on them that they've been provided by the county of Santa Clara, and then the county has to replace those. And it's time for a new plan to address housing and homelessness, because our 5-year plan that we're at the tail of right now has been completely overstripped by the high cost of housing. Even basic housing does not exist anymore. Even shelter space does not exist anymore. And it's really been my position that forcing our county staff to answer phone lines and tell people that they cannot get 1 night of floor space for 6 weeks is emotional abuse of those workers. And so I think we have to have someone on the County Board of Sups who has experience in this area, who has compassion for people who are out in the streets getting rained on right now. This past year, we had the highest number of deaths in the streets that we have ever had, and it makes me as mad as hell.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for your answers. Next, I'm going to introduce Brenda Bell Brown to ask our next question. And Sally, you'll start this one first.
Thank you. I am Brenda, and I am a member of the West Valley Community Services Lived Experience Action Committee. Studies have proven that the most effective strategy for ending homelessness is to pair affordable housing development and supportive services. However, we're facing limited funding now that the Measure A housing bond has been spent and the proposed regional housing measure has been pulled from the November ballot. What steps would you take to make sure we are continuing to fund affordable housing and continuing to expand access to key services such as behavioral health care and case management?
Thank you. I think that Measure A was a success. We've now allocated all of the funds from Measure A. And as I've been out campaigning, so many people have asked, whatever happened to Measure A? Well, it was a great success. We spent all the money wisely, and it had an impact. Now, in the recent months, there's been an attempt to have a Bay Area-wide bond, $20 billion. And I could see it written all over it that this was not going to pass on the ballot. I think we need to have a Plan B for Santa Clara County and have it quickly. It's an absolute, I don't even know the words for it, it's beyond shame that we did not have something on this ballot to provide funding for housing that we need. And I want to say one thing about housing that's linked to services, is that a lot of times people demonize people that are unhoused. And they say this person is drug addicted because they're unhoused. This person is a criminal because they're in an RV. And we need to get beyond that and provide programming to the people who need it to get their lives back on track, but not force people to program and to be in a transitional situation and constantly be going to classes and constantly being hectored to get the services that they need and to just have a place to lay their head. So I think that we really need to take a critical look at what we're providing and what we're putting people through in our county just to have a place to sleep. And so that's what I'm going to be very, very focused on. And at the Board of Supervisors, I will absolutely go after anyone who calls our unhoused population criminals.
Margaret, yeah, thank you. So I was happy and proud to campaign for Measure A in 2016 and was really excited that it passed. As Sally said, it has been a success with $950 million. There's been about 5,500 of units of affordable housing being built. Mountain View, again, I'll talk about my city a lot, but I'm very proud of what we've done. We have 9 projects where we've utilized Measure A funds. And so it's definitely been a game changer. And in my time, during my time on the city council, we've doubled the number of below market rate housing units. And so these are just, hands-on implementation, how we have to get things done. I would say moving forward, and I was frankly on the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority that worked to try to get the $20 billion bond measure on. Frankly, it was a lot to try to get 9 counties to agree to something. And unfortunately, the electorate right now is not really conducive to revenue measures. But I would say I see the Yes on 5 sign in the back. That's really important. That will lower the threshold for bond measures to pass. So right now you have to get 67%. And I think Measure A passed by like 67.5%. So Yes on 5 will lower it to 55%. So let's help that campaign to pass, and then that will help us to be able to pass the revenue measure down the road. And yes, I already have been talking with folks who've been involved in this regional measure about what next steps are, and whether we do it as a county or a bigger effort is what we need to decide. But this is actually the right time to be planning, given the market. There's not a lot of activity going on, frankly, so it's the opportunity for us to plan and get ready for the next effort. Thanks.
Thank you both once again. Next, I'd like to introduce Rachel Hart. She will be the next to introduce our question, which will go to Margaret first to respond.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hart, and I'm the treasurer for the Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. We know that Santa Clara County residents are being stressed thin financially, which is a key reason more people are being pushed into homelessness than ever before. In fact, in 2023, for every one person who regained stable housing, 1.7 people were pushed into homelessness for the first time. What economic policies would you propose to help make our community more affordable and help more people stand in their homes?
I'm the daughter of working class immigrants, and my parents worked really hard to make a living and so they could pay the bills, and it was a struggle, frankly. They had limited English skills, and so I really value the importance of financial independence. And I'm proud, again, during my time on the City Council to have introduced and championed a couple of measures that I would bring up. One, I led the effort to increase our minimum wage by ordinance, by city ordinance, to now being the highest minimum wage at $18.75. It has an increase with the cost of living. It's the highest in the county and one of the highest in the nation. So very proud of that, to have led that effort. And then more recently, it's actually, we're coming up on our 2 years, but we had some funding, the COVID relief funding. Our city was fortunate. We had a budget surplus even during COVID. So we were able to use the federal funding for projects. And for me, it was all about trying to get as much direct assistance to folks as quickly as possible. So I introduced a pilot guaranteed basic income program. It was 2 years, $2 million, 166 families getting $500 a month. And I know that Destination Home has also been instrumental in this area, but we're about to actually end the program. 2 years is coming up, but we've been collecting data too on how folks use the funding, and it's been really interesting. Folks use it for medical bills, transportation, getting diapers for their babies. So it really seems to have been instrumental in helping folks to stay, be able to stay and continue to live in our communities here in Silicon Valley.
Yes, Sally?
Thank you. I really laud the minimum wage increase in Mountain View. I myself authored a statewide minimum wage increase, and I know that wages really make a difference, but the cost of housing is outstripping all wages that are available to folks right now. Two of the issues where we really differ as candidates is on rent control and displacement for gentrification. Over time in Mountain View, we have been on opposite poles of those two questions. I strongly support rent control and legal help for tenants. And that's something that we really, really need. I feel like we need all rungs on the housing ladder to be available for folks, everything from safe parking on up to affordable housing. And I've strongly supported working with the county as a local city to achieve affordable housing. And that hasn't always been the case on our city council. And at times on our council, people have said, we don't want to take county funding because then we're going to have to take those kinds of people into our community. And we are reliant as a valley and as all of our cities here on people who are working baseline jobs, who are working in the laundry in a hospital, who are working in the dish room in a hospital, who are willing to restock shelves, who are willing to do all the work for our society every single day. And so yes, we want to have those people in our community. We want to have the support workers who help everyone else be here in our community, who work with dignity to be in our communities.
Thank you both. Next we're going to go back to Brenda, and Sally, you'll be the first to answer.
Okay, I must give you a disclosure. I don't live in Mountain View. I live in San Jose, and that's the beauty of this forum. It is addressing homelessness, and homelessness has no boundaries. We wish it did. Our community has experimented with many different shelter models, from converted motels and tiny homes to safe parking and safe sleeping sites. And each of these different models have pros and cons. What is your vision for temporary shelter in our community? For example, are there certain models you do or don't support? Are there certain quality standards you think all shelter options should have?
Yes, I support exploring in a limited way all housing types. There are certain types that are just too expensive and too fraught with failures, and that's been the case with the tiny homes. They've been too expensive, and they've been slower than molasses in January, and that's just the way that it is right now. I'm open to all models. We have a hotel that's undergoing conversion on El Camino in Mountain View, the Crestview Hotel. It's going to be very nice. It's taking years to convert it from a hotel that people were willing to pay money as travelers to stay in, to getting people into shelter there. And as a person who's taken people out of some of our encampments and put them into regular motels, I think that a regular motel is vastly superior to being outside under a bush. And so we need to do things quickly with a real sense of urgency. And that's the difference that I would like to bring. Now, I do want to say about quality standards. We don't have an overabundance of models present in Santa Clara County. We don't have an overabundance of providers present in Santa Clara County, particularly shelter providers. And so there have been some massive failures, and they're mostly around safety, around communicable diseases, around putting people out with a 2-year-old child, that lead people to really prefer to stay in their car or in an encampment than to be in these shelters. And so I think we have to put together a council of providers and individuals with lived experience, and just about anybody who wants to participate in an open-hearted way, and start to look at the best practices that are used in other places and adopt some of those successful models.
Yeah, Margaret.
I support, again, all types of housing options, and as I mentioned earlier, we've implemented a lot of that. So the safe parking lots for vehicle dwellers. Mountain View, we're a city of about 85,000 people, but we actually had the largest safe parking lot program in the Bay Area, only next to Oakland by one spot. So, they come with facilities, and what's really important is that we provide case management to the folks who are living there, and to help them with whatever they need in terms of looking for a job or childcare, or ultimately finding a permanent affordable housing option. And so we have the safe parking lots, Project Home Key, our transitional housing. Yes, we have this hotel, and I think we actually broke ground last year, and I just drove by it the other day, and it looks like it's ready to open. So I think we're moving pretty quickly. Our first Project Home Key project, I was mayor in 2020 during COVID, and we were able to get grant funding from the governor, and we had 4 days to get the application in, and I got a call saying, hey, what do you think? You want to do this? And I was like, yes, let's do it. And I had my staff work on getting all the paperwork in, and then we moved quickly and got it done within 9 months. So that's pretty fast. Frankly, for government, it's really fast. There are these different types, and as we get to implementing them, we learn, and we learn best practices, and we learn lessons. We have lessons learned. So in terms of quality, regardless of what type of housing it is, it should be safe, and it should be a healthy place to live. I'm a breast cancer survivor, so health is very important to me. So should definitely have certain guidelines and requirements. Thanks.
Okay, thank you both. Now I have an audience reminder. We're going to be starting our 5th question. So if you need a comment card, if you have any questions for our candidates, please raise your hand and our team will come over. And then next, for our next question, I'm going to go back to Gabriella here, and we are going to rotate to Margaret to start this one.
Yes, thank you. Recent data from HUD shows there are over 60,000 unhoused women in California, a number which has distinguishedly doubled since 2015. There is a significant number of these women who are survivors of domestic violence, abused mothers, or currently pregnant. What will you do to address this important and vulnerable population?
Yes. Unfortunately, it's become more challenging because recently the federal government has cut funding for domestic violence programs. I actually work for a nonprofit called Asian Americans for Community Involvement, ACI, and we have an Asian women's home for domestic violence victims. But I very much value the work that's being done in getting women and their families into a safe location, and then providing the services to help them move out of that dangerous condition. I've been talking to folks. I like to go out and talk to different folks and groups, and how do we provide affordable housing for this population? And I think, well, could we try to do like a Project Home Key project for domestic violence victims? I've talked with affordable housing developers, and when they're developing a project, I've exploring whether we could perhaps have some units for domestic violence victims. And so it's really trying to come up with some creative solutions at a time when resources are getting more and more diminished, and seeing if we can find ways to partner with affordable housing developers and organizations to provide for the population. Thank you.
So I'm surprised that HUD has only come up with 60,000. I think we could find way more than that. And I'd like you to imagine and to extend your compassion out to the tens of thousands of women who stay in domestic violence situations in our own communities because they know that they could never make it in this housing market. So they endure the abuse. They try to protect their children from the abuse, but the children get exposed to, that's their childhood trauma, and it becomes a part of their trauma history throughout their lives. I think that we need to have people who will speak for the women who also get sexually abused and beaten up on the streets in Santa Clara County. I've never heard any police agency talk about that with any level of compassion, about what happens to the women, what happens to trans people, what happens to youth who are on the streets unaccompanied. And we've got to integrate that into our policy making and give a damn about that. I was talking with Doug, who's here tonight, earlier, about the number of people on the streets. The root cause of their being on the streets is that they had a head injury. And our health systems never dig down to that level of diagnosis for them. And we've got to ask the tough questions and keep digging and keep asking why, and not hector people once they are a part of the system. I can't even imagine being a woman who is coming in from the violence of the streets and then gets hectored by a service provider about you've got to move to the Central Valley. Even though your job is here, your support system is here, your children are here with your sister or whatever, you've got to move to the Central Valley. We have to have some compassion.
Yes, thank you both for your responses. For our sixth and final prepared question, we still have time for audience questions. I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel, and Sally, you'll start first.
All across our community, we're seeing the importance of centering individuals' lived experience in everything we do, whether it be experience related to discrimination, violence, economic insecurity, or any other host of issues affecting our residents. How would you plan to learn from and collaborate with people with lived experience of homelessness in order to make meaningful change?
I think this is so important, and the conversations are so important. For me, it's very personal, because I think back to all the times when my mom and I didn't have food in every crappy motel that we ever stayed in. And I remember on my 16th birthday, she got me a cake. And I wasn't even in the track of thinking that it was my birthday, and we didn't even have a knife or a fork or anything. And I just think that when you have the lived experience, you have the passion in your gut to care for other people. The things that we're seeing right now are unprecedented. We've never seen infants and toddlers in the encampments, and we're seeing them now. And we've got to break the molds of what we've done in the past and everything that we tried and everything that wasn't successful, but we're going to continue doing it for another 12 years and really start to have those conversations. I haven't been impacted by racism, but I think it's horrible and corrosive. And I've definitely been impacted by sexism in my life. I can't imagine being impacted by the intersection of racism and sexism and being cast out by society for being who I am. And I think we just have to center ourselves on having the very difficult conversations and on being open when we're in office. We have to be compassionate. We have to face the need head on, whether it's in the jail or on the streets or in the penthouse of San Jose. We've got to talk to people and find out, what did you see? Where does it hurt? What's going on for you? Why is your life the way that it is right now? And really face that in an open-hearted and courageous way. And that's why I'm running for this office. That's what I want to do.
My lived experiences is what informs me and what makes me want to do the work that I do. As I mentioned, I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents didn't speak English. I was their translator as soon as I learned English. And through that experience, I saw discrimination and I saw the challenges and the struggles that you face when you don't have a voice in the community. So I do what I do because I want to make sure everyone, regardless of their background, has a voice in our community. I'm a working parent. I have two daughters. My younger one just left for Japan for a year abroad this morning, so I'm a little sad inside. But I understand the challenges of trying to work and finding childcare options. I am a breast cancer survivor, and so I understand the importance and the challenges of finding affordable, accessible health care. These are the lived experiences that I bring to the work that I do, and I've been doing this work for almost 20 years, most of it in the same position, because I know that it takes time and it takes that consistency to get things done. And I'm proud of what we've been able to do in my community, but also regionally. I serve on a number of regional boards on transportation, VTA. I've worked on this housing issue for the last several years. And so in my decision making, I don't draw from just my own experience, but from others. And I do my best. I'm accessible. I go out into the community. I talk to people. I build those relationships. And at the county, I would continue to do that. You know, I would welcome the input of those who have had these experiences, because the policies we make, they don't do any good if they're not helping real people. And that's what I want to help real people.
Okay, thank you both for answering our prepared questions, and let's give a huge round of applause to my partners and our advocates on the stage here for preparing those thoughtful questions. Okay, next we're going to go to the audience questions. So, how do you plan to obtain additional funding from the state when they're now facing such a budget crisis? And we're starting back with Margaret.
Well, I think that's challenges that the state doesn't have any funding now. And so, frankly, with this regional housing bond measure, we were tasked as a region to go figure it out ourselves. And that's what we've tried to do. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out. We had some legal challenges to the measure, but I see that more and more. And frankly, as a city council member, I've seen it over the years that we just have to actually become more independent, and we can't really count on the state. I see the state puts down all these mandates, wants us to build all this housing, but then they don't provide the resources to build the affordable housing. So we're having to figure it out ourselves. And, that's fine. Like, at the end of the day, I believe in local control, and I think that's the best way to get what we need done the way we want to get it done. But that's the challenge right now. The state doesn't have any money. They have a huge budget deficit. They've pushed the responsibility onto the local governments, and we're having to try to figure it out. I've been working on this, and I will continue to do so. I'm hoping that I can have more time at the county to work on real solutions.
Sally.
Thank you. I don't have any problem whatsoever with the state mandating that housing has got to be created in our state, and that it's not enough to just gentrify and gentrify to the moon. And we've got to have affordable housing for actual people who are here. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And we did have a lot of conversations on our city council. Well, why should we do it if Los Altos Hills doesn't do it? And somebody has got to step up and show the leadership. And I think that's, where it's at for me. I am very blessed for a little girl from Detroit to have gotten to the place where I am, to be able to have a conversational relationship with the governor. And one of my chief aims right now, as fast as we can, is to get a statewide housing bond. And it doesn't matter if the state doesn't have any money. It's a bond. We're borrowing against future payments. And we do have the bonding capacity available to us. There's a climate bond on the current ballot, but we need a housing bond as soon as possible. And there are just no excuses, because I'm not going to go to my constituents and say another drugstore is closed because they couldn't get anybody to work there. The hardware store is open 6 hours a day because we couldn't get anybody to work there. You can't go to the hospital and expect clean sheets because there's nobody in the laundry room to wash them. We have to be the adults in the situation and create the housing that we need, that's clean, safe, it's got a lock on the door, it's dignified for people to live there. That's mental health, that's public health, that's dignity.
Okay, thank you both. For our next audience question, Sally, you'll start first. If elected to the board, will you open the fairgrounds for RVs or for an unhoused camp, or also called like safe sleeping or?
Yes, absolutely. In Mountain View, we had to be sued and be forced into it. We spent several $1 million kicking our heels into the dirt and saying, no, no, no. I will promote that, I will lead it, I will fight for it, to have the space for people to live.
And Margaret?
Yes, I definitely would like to look at the county fairgrounds, and I know there's I think I see some folks here who've been a part of the tiny home movement, and again, I think we just need to try different things, and there's a lot of land at the county fairgrounds to frankly do a lot of different things, so I definitely would be open to that. We actually in Mountain View started the safe parking lot program before. We did get hit with a lawsuit, but we started it before that. So we've been on the cutting edge of these programs, and I'm very proud that we've been able to do it. Frankly, it's because as a city we've been financially sound, and I've worked really hard to make sure we were there, that we punch above our weight class, and we provide these programs that frankly, most other cities don't. Even, I hate to criticize, but San Jose, which is 10 times larger than us. So I've seen it, I've been a part of it, I've helped to implement these programs, and I've seen that they work. There's definitely, again, lessons to be learned, and we need to continue to improve on them. But because I've experienced it, I know it can work, and I'm very much open to continuing to expand on those programs. I just wanted to also correct my opponent. We have permanent supportive housing. It's part of Measure A funds that we provide the units, and those are all incorporated in our projects, the 9 projects I talked about of affordable housing. So we have those units, and I'm very excited that we've done that. Yes, it's sometimes challenging, and we've had to work with the community and convince them, but frankly, our community has really come forward and embraced it. And so it's really about communicating, talking to folks, listening to them, and being on the ground. This could all be theories and policies that you make, but I really had to actually implement it, and I'm very proud of what we've been able to do.
Okay, thank you. This will be our final question for the evening, and we'll start with Margaret. Can you expand on what would be an ethical plan for supporting unhoused folks during encampment sweeps?
Again, we need to have places for folks to be able to go. And that is the key to this. So having, again, different options. And I've seen, we have a very diverse community. People have different living circumstances. And we need to meet people where they are and provide those options. So again, we've done that. We've done that proactively in Mountain View. So, I know we can do it. It's challenging now, frankly, because of the way the economy is, but we just have to keep at it. There is the other side too, and I think there are opportunities to do it more cost effectively. We had an affordable housing project that was $10 million short, and then with value engineering, they were able to cut that to half that, and then we were able to find extra funding to be able to make this project happen. So we have to be innovative. We have to look at things like design and how we build to make it cost effective. So I think it's, both. There's this debate going on about, which way should we go, either or. I think we have to do it all.
Sally.
I think in looking at an ethical way of approaching encampments, you have to know that an encampment is not the first choice. For the people that are there, it's the only choice. And I think there's no way to make sweeping, to sanitize it ethically, to make it okay. I think that we have to have alternatives for folks to go to before any sweep takes place. And 100%, 1,000% of people that are on the street have experienced trauma. We have almost no trauma services in Santa Clara County or trauma-informed supportive services in Santa Clara County, particularly not for the need that we have here. And sweeps are extremely traumatic for people. They lose all their belongings, they lose their medication, sometimes they lose their pet. They can't go to the hospital because they're afraid of the camp getting swept in case they have to stay at the hospital. It's just really brutal and ridiculous, and we have to create the alternative places for people and a laddered approach to housing before we go in and treat people like garbage.
Okay, well, thank you both so much. We're gonna have time for closing comments, so we'll have 2 minutes each, and we're gonna start with Sally.
Well, I just want to thank everybody who's here tonight. You know, the fact that you care about this topic enough to be here, and the fact that you're willing to be here with the lived experience that you have just really fills my heart up. And I know why I'm running for this office, and it's not to get to the next rung on the political ladder. It's to serve people that have real needs who are in our community, and they are valuable, and we need to have them here. And from my office, from every position that I've ever had in government, Doug can vouch for me, I've said, take the least among us and put them first. They need the best representation. And take the wealthy people who can pay for this, pay for that, California Apartment Association. They have the resources to take care of themselves, but a lot of people don't in society. And that's who I'm interested in really solving issues for. And we can do this. We're a wealthy community here in Silicon Valley. We're one of the richest places in the world, and we're suffering from our own success. And we need to devote some of that wealth to actually taking care of our neighbors and the people that we must have in our community, and people that matter and have value because they're human beings. So that's why I'm in this race. That's why I'm in this game. That's why I'm trying so hard. Thank you.
Okay, and definitely not least, Margaret.
Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here, and thank you to the sponsors. It's really always a great opportunity to talk with all of you, hear your questions. Hopefully we can dialogue after. And we're in very challenging times, and there are big issues to deal with, but I think I've shown in my, again, almost 2 decades of service. I was on the city council. It's been 4 terms, and I served on the Board of Education before that we can get things done. And that's what it is about for me. Frankly, I just try to be practical, pragmatic, roll my sleeves up, and get things done. And it's important to hear from all different perspectives. I don't categorize people, judge people, frankly. Everybody has different perspectives, and that's really important. And we have to work together to figure out the solutions to these issues. Housing, as we've talked about, it's a big challenge. Frankly, we've been working on this ever since I've started office. We've always had a housing crisis. Not to say that we can't make improvements. We definitely can, and again, I think that I've been able to show that we can get things done. I appreciate folks' experiences. I welcome that. A lot of what I do is about being accessible and hearing from all of you to come up with the best solutions, and that's what I will continue to do. I've shown I hunker down, stay in one position to get the job done. And that's my plan. If I am elected to the county, I will serve as long as the people want me to serve, and I will do my best to work every day as hard as I can to get solutions and get accomplishments, get people housed, get people in a place where they can live comfortably in this valley and thrive. So thank you very much again for having me.
Thank you. Yeah, let's all give the District 5 candidates a huge round of applause. Thank you all for your work today. And of course, we had our District 2 candidates earlier, so this has been really a wonderful evening. I want to thank everybody who put this together, our folks from Destination Home, from PATH, from the West Valley Community Services, and our Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. Let's give them a round of applause for making this so special. And lastly, thank you to all of you for joining us tonight. We have an action item for you, though. What we want you to do is go out, take action, and vote by November 5th. So thank you again for being here, and have a great night.